Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode or edition, whatever you want to call it, of Venue Visionaries. My name is Gil Fried,
And this is Matthew Castell.
and I hope everyone's doing well. It's been a while as we've been very busy, whether it's teaching classes or trying to open up a stadium for the next Major League Baseball season. We've been trying to keep as busy as possible, but that does not mean we do not want to think about our loyal listeners. And thank you so much for listening and for subscribing if you haven't already subscribed. And we want to cover an interesting topic today. And I think the best title of this would be Expect the Unexpected. And so, Matt, you want to start off with what really prompted the idea?
Yes, and it was something that has been happening more and more in professional sports that these type of incidents happen. And it's one of these incidents where it's a fun thing to do, and a lot of people enjoy it, but it's something bad happened from it. And the incident that sort of sparked this episode was a minor league prospect of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Not just any minor league prospect, but their number one pick from a couple of years ago, who they paid a bonus of $1.8 million to sign a contract. So they have high expectations of this player. Uh, was playing a minor league game in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And in Tulsa, Oklahoma, they have a bat dog, I guess you would call him, who runs out and grabs the bat in between batters. It's a fun minor league thing. Several minor league teams have been doing it for years. Fans enjoy it. But in this case, as he was running out to grab the bat, he came too close to the player who had to jump out of the way. And when he jumped out of the way, the player by the name of Kendall George had a season-ending injury, which of course is devastating to the Dodgers because they've invested so much money into him. Devastating for the player because you only have a finite number of years to be a professional athlete, and this one is now gone. So it sort of sparked the question that I thought of a lot, and I think a lot of people do. How do you balance out sometimes when you're doing something fun and interesting in a sports arena, it comes with some risk, and how do you balance it out so you don't have incidents like this happen, or you can reduce the risk of you're doing something fun, but bad things can happen sometimes, even when you're trying to entertain the crowd. And what's the fine line?
It is a very fine line, and there is no one set solution, but we thought it would be interesting to cover some of the interesting things that have happened. And some of these things are inherent in a venue, or it could be in execution of events. So I'm just going to throw out a couple right now that deal with the venue, and then Matthew's going to be covering a couple that are associated with in-game promotions that have gone a little bit awry. And I'll try following up with some of those as well. But two cases that jump out to me include the Reggie Bush Ring of Death, incident, and then Dustin Fowler. Now, I have to give a caveat. I was an expert witness in the Dustin Fowler case, so I can't disclose too much information about it. But similar to this prospect that we were looking at for the Los Angeles Dodgers, this was a rookie for the New York Mets first day of playing a Major League Baseball game. He went to chase a ball. He collided with a Wi-Fi box that was installed into the field playing area to help boost Wi-Fi access for individuals throughout the stadium. Unfortunately, he blew out his knee. It wasn't just a little minor injury. It was basically like a career-ending type of injury. And first day, just very unfortunate incident. But when you take a look at it, you have to look at, well, where are we placing things? Where do we have things that are critical for our use, but are we putting it in the safest place for both fans and for players? And that becomes an issue. And the second example would be the Reggie Bush Ring of Death, which was in St. Louis when the St. Louis Rams were still in existence. And Reggie Bush was a running back for the San Francisco 49ers. And while he was executing a play and was going out of bounds, he continued out of bounds and then slipped on this concrete ring that circled the stadium. if you ask what is the primary purpose of it, I cannot say that there was a primary purpose for the cement ring and where it was located and the depth of it and the thickness and everything else. But he was seriously injured. He injured his knee in that incident, and he ended up suing St. Louis and recovered a significant sum of money. If I'm not mistaken, it was close to $13 million because it was a devastating injury that he had suffered. Do you need that there? Was it critical for there? I handled one case a number of years ago where a high school put down a cement pad and they said, this is going to be great for people that are in wheelchairs because it's ADA compliant. The problem was it was within about 5 feet of the out of bounds line for soccer. And parents were the ones who actually hired me because they wanted me to petition the school board to say, look at this is too dangerous for the people playing soccer because here, if anything happens and they go out of bounds, this is within 5 feet of the out of bounds line. It's just not safe at all. So that becomes an issue is when you're designing a building from the very beginning, you have to anticipate what might go wrong. I know Matt and I have talked about this for years about like escalators and how people try to ride the arm element of an escalator where you put your hand and they fall off of it. Should you design it to anticipate the unexpected? So those are a couple things that jump out of my mind. Anything from your end, Matt?
Well, I think one thing we should point out, and I'll point out a couple of other examples of this is things that were acceptable in the past are no longer acceptable. The standard seems to be much higher, and I think you would agree with that, Gail. Because I'm a sports nut, I was watching an old YouTube clip from 1975, and it was a baseball game in the Detroit Stadium. And the reason I was watching it wasn't related to what happened, but a player hurt himself running in the center field where they literally had a drainage pipe, it was really big and thick that came out in the playing surface. Now, nobody would design a facility like that anymore, a sports facility anymore. But when the player sort of hurt himself and was rolling around on the ground, none of the announcers thought anything of it. It's a totally different, higher standard today. So I think the lesson is for sports facilities, you really have to think through the design. You really have to check everything to see, what can go wrong. And sometimes it's not even the sports facility design; it's what you're doing. I know Gil, you and I have talked about a lot of stadiums and arenas do the T-shirt launchers. It's pretty common. Everyone, the fans go crazy. Everyone loves them, but there have been lawsuits and there have been people hurt. Getting hit by them or somebody climbing over them to catch the T-shirt. So, again, it goes to that fine line of where do you draw the line for fun? How do you entertain the crowd but still make it safe? And I think some of the extreme examples that I think of, and I have a friend who just retired from Major League Baseball, who was a young guy with the Chicago White Sox at the time for Disco Demolition Night, where they thought it was going to be a fun promotion, where they're going to disco was very popular. If you were alive in the 70s, and if you don't know, disco was very popular and very hated at the same time. You're either one or the other. So the White Sox had a fun little promotion where they were going to blow up some disco records and everyone was going to enjoy themselves. And it didn't go as planned. As fans stormed the field, they had a forfeit a game. And then because the field was so wrecked afterwards, and then the players had to literally fight their way off the field, sort of crowd together as like a mass and sort of fight their way off the field to get off safely. And then the police told them that night that the visiting team, they better go home to their hotel and lock themselves in. And that's the best they could do for them. So, you think you're doing something fun and it can end up not fun. So I guess, Gil, what can we do to still keep a sports facility fun, but also safe at the same time? What are your thoughts?
Well, there are so many things that we can take a look at. And I think part of this is going to be our question at the end of this segment. We'll ask that question. But some of the things that come to my mind without trying to tip too much of my hand is planning. And one of the things that I have mentioned many times on these videos is the need for detailed plan. We often call it worst case scenario planning in my perspective, which is strategic planning is where you want to look at where you want to go. Worst case scenario planning is what do you not want to do? How can you possibly avoid it? And that's taking a look at every single element of what is going on, having identified the elements and parts and activities engaged in that, and to see what could possibly go wrong and how can you possibly minimize that. So there could be something like a dizzy bat race, and we all have seen that in minor league sports where, a fan has to put their head against a bat that's on the ground and go around in circles a number of times and try running then to a specific location. And you might think, well, nothing can go wrong. Well, the idea is that you're trying to get people dizzy. And when people are dizzy, what can they do? They could fall. And we can have a laughter about it and everything else like that. But what if they fall and hurt themselves? In fact, there has been one lawsuit where someone got injured doing a dizzy bat race and they broke their leg. So, are you thinking about the extreme situations and what kind of steps can you take to try to minimize that? And that might be saying, hey, look, it's a great idea, but maybe we don't want to do it. One example that really highlights this, um, another case I was involved with, involving Joe Garagiola, who was a famous player and then became an announcer. And he was with the Phoenix team and the good old Diamondbacks. And he did a promotion in between the seventh inning when everyone's doing Take Me Out to the Ball Game, singing the nice song. And he dropped these little push squeezy balls from his announcer booth, and they were with a good message about, I think it was stop smoking or something like that, smoking cessation, something to that effect. And here you had an old lady who was looking up because something was coming down and falling around her. And while she was looking up, you had kids that were trying to get to, this these souvenirs, and they dove at her from either direction and they took out both of her knees. So she ended up having ACL tears in both knees. And it just devastating injury. And she brought a lawsuit. They stopped it immediately. They did not do it again. But that's something where you have to think not just of the elements of the activity, but how will fans respond to it? Look at when there's a foul ball or someone's tossing, as Matthew said, a t-shirt into the stands, or a player tossing a ball that was signed. How do they respond? So you have to think about the broad implications. Those are some things that jump out to me.
Yeah, and you mentioned something, Gil, that I think is important on planning. Um, in worst case planning, I think it's important if you're in the sports facility industry to get the opinions of different people. Like, for instance, the marketing and sales and promotion people may see a t-shirt launcher as a great, you can sell a sponsorship to it. It's fun, it's exciting, but before they implement that, you want to involve everyone in the facility, and maybe the facilities people or maybe the security people bring up, yeah, but what about this and what about that? So when you do something like that, you're covering as many different scenarios as possible.
Can you share some other examples where things might have gone a little bit wrong? And one that jumps out to me is, the kiss cam,
Oh,
and
yeah.
with Coldplay, and that I don't necessarily think that is a bad activity because it gets people engaged. Can there be ramifications? Yes. And have people sued? Yes. People have sued, but it's one of those things on the back of the ticket that you give the right of other people, especially the broadcasters, venues, and the team, to take your picture and to publicize it either during the game or at other times. So it's one of those things that it's tough for you to come back and say, well, I didn't consent. It's part of the ticket that you consent to having your image being broadcast. And so it's going to be tough to fight that one, but it doesn't mean people have not sued for that.
And I think the ones that you and I had a conversation on and talked about before are mascots. Everyone loves the mascot. Well, I won't say everyone loves the mascots. Most people love the mascots, especially young children. Um, but there have been a long line of things that mascots have done during the game that fans have sued or complained about it for being inappropriate or over the line, hurting people but accidentally. So, you have these lovable furry creatures rolling around and you think, what can go wrong? Well, quite a bit. And I know from my personal experience when I was in the with the Astros years ago, the mascot reported up to me, and they would just be, and the mascot people in the costume were good people, but you know, when you're dealing with uh, 30,000 people a game, somebody can accuse you of inappropriately touching you. All sorts of things. Or we would always put on a skit during the game when I was with the Astros, the mascot would, and every once in a while somebody would complain that it wasn't in good taste. So how do you, it's a fine line again of that entertaining people. And just some of the things that we did was, the mascot skits in between and had to be approved first. And those sort of things are the ways we try to mitigate maybe not just physical injury or harm, but the potential of reputational injury or harm if you have a mascot that does something that's deemed quote unquote inappropriate.
There are so many little things that you think about that are part of an act, so to speak, part of a game, part of the experience, and you don't anticipate that someone will get injured or something wrong might happen, but it can happen to the mascot, it can happen to fans, it could happen to employees. Um, uh, when the local minor league baseball team here, the Blue Wahoos, they have in between, I think it was like the sixth and seventh inning, they have someone dressed up as a roach, and they have all the kids try chasing this guy across the outfield. And you know, I volunteered to do it. My wife has nixed that idea many times because one of the things is that even if the kids don't catch you, they're going to try hitting you and attacking you. And if they do get you, they're going for sensitive areas when they try to attack you. And so we've had people that have been not seriously injured, but injured enough where they have to walk it off and be like, I'm never going to do that again, kind of thing versus you have things that just seem so innocuous. There have been lawsuits against the Harlem Globetrotters. They have part of their act is they pretend to have a bucket of water and they splash it on a player, but the player moves and hits a fan and it's actually confetti. But there was one fan who recoiled because he thought he was going to be hit by water and he hurt his back and then end up suing. And that's, you're thinking it's confetti. What harm can it do? It's not necessarily the confetti, it's the fear that people might have. So those are kind of things that you have to take a look at of small little things that could impact whether it's the fans, players, or employees. And I really want to make sure we don't forget the employees because they're so critical in this equation.
Absolutely good point, Gail.
Any other thoughts that you have on this one, Matt?
Well, I can tell you a real world example of just the kind of things that can seem innocent at the time, and then later on it could be problematic. When I was in minor league baseball, this is a long time ago. So long ago, we didn't have a very sophisticated video board. It just had some canned, uh, pre-planned things that would pop up on the board. So every time a batter struck out, a K would come up when the visiting batter struck out. If you struck out two batters in an inning, two Ks came up. So you can imagine the problem when somebody struck out the side. So that happened once at a minor league field I was working at, and we got a fan complaint, and we quickly figured out that we didn't want to be displaying KKK on our video board. So, these things can happen innocently, but you got to really think it through and plan it through because, after it happens, you can't take it back. You gotta be a little bit more proactive, and it's hard because you want to do things that are fun, but you want to do things that are safe, and also, like I said, keep your keep your reputation intact as well.
Yeah. And you never know how fans are going to interpret something that
Mhm.
you could think of it as something being completely benign, but
Right.
others could have read an innuendo into it, or
Hmm.
um, you take all the fans as you get them. So some of them might be prude, some of them might be college kids who are rambunctious, then you have young kids, you have old, young, all these different spectrums, and everyone will take it differently. And you might make 10 people happy, but it's that one person that was upset that's going to try to go to social media now, try to encourage all their friends to bombard the front office with emails and with protests, and all of a sudden it goes down a rabbit hole. And in today's day and age where you have to respond almost immediately to these kind of issues, it's not like someone sending in a letter and then you send them a couple free tickets. Now with social media and influencers and everything else, you have to be on top of this right away to be able to address it and try to resolve it as quickly as possible.
Right. You can't, and like you hit the nail on the head in this day and age. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. When something happens, it happens.
And one of the best solutions is to genuinely say, I'm sorry, I messed up. People accept that. It's when you try hiding and obfuscating and stuff like that, that's when you get down a rabbit hole and can get into serious trouble. But if you come out and say, look we made a mistake, we're not going to do that again. Oftentimes people want a pound of flesh. You don't have to necessarily terminate every employee that makes a single mistake. If it's egregious, you might have to, but otherwise you can say, hey, we have worked with this employee where we retrain them and now they understand the severity of these actions and have agreed never to do it again. Bam. For most people, that's going to be enough.
Agreed.
All right. Do you want to raise the question, Matt?
I'll let you can go ahead and ask the question. How about that? We'll throw it back
Okay.
on you.
The question that we're going to ask is very straightforward. You are putting on an event, let's say a minor league baseball game, and you have creative people within your organization who come up with phenomenal ideas. How do you embolden them to and encourage them to keep moving forward, but at the same breath, think about and address all the safety issues that might exist within everything that they're proposing? So, what are the guardrails that you would suggest? So, that's a question that we put forward to you, and let's start the clock. We're back. Hopefully, everyone has had a good opportunity to think about the question that we asked. And why don't we start off, Matt? What would you think would be some of the strategies to put in appropriate guardrails and not to discourage people?
I think first of all, you have to recognize that the sports business is the entertainment business. So it's part and parcel that outside of the games, you have to come up with fun things for the fans and the customers, etc. So that's part of it. So you never want to get to the point where you're so scared of doing anything, you do nothing because you have to entertain your customers. So I think in your scenario, like you're a minor league general manager and you want to make sure your team is still doing creative things, but in a way that there's guardrails. I think the first thing to do is make sure there's approvals. Like, before you do something, especially in minor league baseball, it's very easy for an employee to just say, well, I'll just try this. No, get approval for it first. And sort of what I mentioned before, get the whole team together, maybe at a homestand meeting and say, hey, we're doing fireworks on Friday night. And in conjunction, we want to do this as well. And get everyone in the room. So everyone has their opinion heard because the concessions people may know something different than the marketing people. The facilities people may know something different. The people involved in player personnel may have a totally different take on it than you and I do. So I think that's the key. Get everyone involved, talk through all the scenarios, talk through the worst case, and I think that's the saving grace. That will I won't say will make all your problems go away, but at least you thought it through thoroughly, where most of the problems will disappear. Gil, what are your thoughts?
So to add upon, like that's a wonderful answer. Put it down in writing first. Have your brainstorming sessions and put it down in writing so you can think of it from a global perspective. Then, as Matt said, get the people in the room to be involved with it, but also get the people outside of the room. Attorneys, insurance companies. Insurance companies might say, look, if you do that, we're probably not going to cover you for that. The one that I would add, which might be a unique one, is why not create a fan advisory board? And there you can get some fans together, suggest, here are some of the ideas. What do you guys think? That way, if the fan advisory board says, yes, we want you to go forward with these promotions, and you have all the guardrails there, if anyone complains at a certain point, you can say, look at this is what you guys, the average fans, have suggested we do. So we're just following your lead and trying to put it on in the safest manner possible. That gives you some kind of protection because as Matt and I are both instructors in sport management, and we often have students that say, "Well, can you give me a break this time?" And what we often have to say is, "Well, if we do it for you, it will be unfair for others." And oftentimes they'll be like, "Yeah, that's right." So if you say, hey, look at it's average fans like you that have said, let's try doing this, they often might say, well, I'm not a big fan of it, but this is what others have suggested. So that might be a way to deflect some potential concern and liability. But you need to have that written documentation of what it was that you planned, how did you execute it, and that becomes part of the game script of having the evidence of saying, look at this is what we did, here's when we did it, here were the steps involved, this is why we chose certain number of individuals to participate in it, things like that. And so the more information that you have and that you can keep that and keep also any videos of any of these promotions that are undertaken, because someone might say, well, you did it this way. And you might say, well, we did that promotion, but we actually didn't do it this way. Here's the video of how we run this promotion. That goes a long way in trying to cover your backside because you can have video footage of what you do, and then you could say, this is our custom and practice to do it this way. So
I,
those are ideas I have.
I love your idea of including the insurance people in front. They're a very important component of what you do, and they're like the name says, insurance. You can rest a little easier knowing that they've sort of blessed something in advance, just in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. And as we just said, it's bound to go wrong. You
Yeah,
know,
they're
as it's saying that I tell my students, expect the unexpected. And that's why that was the title of this presentation. Any last words from anyone?
Well, I just think like I'll start where I'll end where I started, that it is important to entertain the your customers. It's part of what you need to do, but think it through, go through some of the steps that we suggested, like insurance and various departments, and put it in writing first. It's that fine line. You're not always going to be perfect, but at least you tip the odds in your favor by doing that.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And one last thing, besides saying, hey, if you have an attorney or stuff like that, attorneys aren't always the smartest guys in the room. Don't be fooled. But what they are good at is being devil's advocates. And you need someone in the room to be able to say, but what if? And that individual, you often have a lot of people that say, yes, yes, yes. You want that one person in the room to say, but what if? Because maybe they are raising, in fact, a legitimate point. Maybe they're a hypochondriac and don't want to do anything. That has to be the weighted balance that you have to do. So make sure you put on safe events out there, guys and gals. Everyone, take care and have a wonderful summer. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.